Hi, I'm Bob Roth, managing partner and co-founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. Since 1994, we've been helping older adults in the Phoenix community age gracefully and safely in the place they call home. Since 2014, I've been bringing you Health Futures, Taking Stock in You, a show dedicated to helping you live a longer, healthier, and happier life. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to Health Futures. We're coming at you live from a podcast studio in Scottsdale, Old Scottsdale. And I'm happy to have this guest here in the studio with me. I had a chance to meet her earlier this year, and she's doing some really amazing things that I really believe that you, our listeners, should be checking out. So without further ado, Edie Feffer, welcome to Health Futures. Edie is a EFT practitioner and a health coach, and she has her own practice, and she's doing some really remarkable things. So, Edie, welcome to Health Futures.
Thank you so much, Bob. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm excited to chat with you.
Well, it's great to have you here. So, to really set the stage for us and really for me, tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, you're a health coach and an EFT practitioner, and we're going to dive deep into that to really learn what that is all about. But I really want to hear a little bit about Edie Feffer. You know, you're from Arizona, right?
I am.
And tell us a little bit about your journey, where you went to school, and really up to when you decided that, you know, being a health coach is what I want to do.
Sure. I'm happy to start there. So yes, I am from Phoenix, Arizona. I spent several years in Portland, Oregon, and San Diego, California, and moved back to
What took you to those places, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. I went to school in San Diego.
Okay.
So I went to college at the University of San Diego. And after I graduated, I moved to Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And ultimately ended up getting a little homesick. So I moved back to San Diego. My grandparents lived in Coronado, the Feffers.
Yep.
And then it was just nice to be close to home, easy to get back to Phoenix, cooler weather. And then just over the recent years, I really started wanting to be closer to home. My folks live in Cave Creek, and my sister and her family are here 5 minutes from me. So I moved back 2 years ago, and it's been awesome.
Oh, it's great to have you back. And, you know, that really tells and sets the stage for our listeners about you and your background. But I want to first say this. When I first met you, I said, Feffer, I know that name. My parents were friends with the Feffers, and you let me know that your great aunt was Evelyn Feffer.
Yes.
And the reason why I know that is because we're in the healthcare vertical, and we do a lot of work with a little hospice company here in town called Hospice of the Valley. And Hospice of the Valley, I'm going to say, gosh, it was probably 15 years ago. They built out what they call an inpatient unit. And that inpatient unit resides on the Mayo Clinic Hospital campus. And the name of that unit is called Sherman House. And there's a real big picture when you walk in, I think it's still there, of your great aunt and your great uncle. And your great aunt named that house after her parents, which, if I follow the genealogy correctly, would probably be like your great-great-grandparents.
I think
Do I
that's
have that
Bob.
right?
I think so, yes. But I remember seeing Aunt Evelyn's photo in the Sherman home when my grandmother Feffer was there.
Wow.
So it's a special place and a special connection to have to you for sure.
Well, special connection. And you know, we're not here to talk about Hospice of the Valley, but, you know, I always will give them a plug because they did an amazing job helping my stepmother and my father in their journey till the end of life. And I can't say enough nice things. They did an amazing job. So, you know, I have Hospice of the Valley close to my heart, and certainly the fact is your great aunt did as well. And she built an incredible IPU. Well, I don't mean she built, but she provided the capital to make that campaign work.
Yes, yeah, it's a beautiful center.
All right. So we've set the stage here.
Yes.
So Edie, you're doing some really cool things as it relates to being an EFT practitioner and a health coach. So, let's start with health coach.
Sure.
I really want to understand, you look healthy.
Yep.
I'm sure there was a journey and
Yes.
an impetus, a desire to really become a health coach. So can you share with me and our listeners why you chose this as a profession?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think, like many people who end up working in the health and wellness space, my journey hasn't been a straight line. It has not been linear. And it started way before I even knew what health coaching was. I grew up in a very high stress home environment, and it had a very profound impact on my mental health and my emotional health. As a really young girl in elementary school, I was diagnosed with OCD, depression, anxiety,
Wow.
complex CPTSD, and that morphed into eating disorders, so anorexia and bulimia. And I share that because that stress and those experiences shaped the way my nervous system operated for so many years. And that's one reason why I'm so passionate about the work that I do now, because I don't think God would have given me those struggles if they weren't meant to be overcome and ultimately lead me to my calling, which is to help clients live a life they love in a body they love while feeling anchored in self-trust. And so even though I hit the weight that I needed to go off to college, I still had a really unhealthy relationship with food. And while I was no longer in a state of eating disorders, I would turn to food to soothe because I still didn't know what to do with these big emotions or past experiences. And I ended up overeating and gaining about 30 pounds.
Whoa.
So in my late 20s and early 30s, I wanted to finally heal my relationship with food and learn how to lose those 30 pounds in a healthy, body-loving way. And as I did that, what's wild to me is it started as this surface level goal of wanting to lose the weight, which that is a meaningful goal. Many people come to me for help with weight loss and what I call food freedom. But at the time, I had no idea that it would be really this gateway to me learning how to like myself, learning how to have emotional literacy, learning how to regulate my nervous system, and ultimately learning how to trust myself. So that idea of self-trust is really what's at the foundation for my work, for all of the programs that I offer, because I believe that there's one thing that holds the key to everything you want and deserve, every desire that's been placed on your heart, and it's self-trust. Self-trust with food, with love, with business, with money, with relationships, health, all of it. And I spent 17 years in real estate.
Wow.
And as I started to release the weight and feel more confident, happier, healthier, I started to build my practice on the side of my corporate job. And I did that for 7 years and then got it to a point where I could leave. And this is my life's work. I love health coaching.
It's your passion.
It is.
It's fueled your passion.
No doubt.
And, when you and I met last, you talked to me about 2 types of foods while we're talking about foods, because there's a lot more that I want to unpack about what you just shared with us. And I want to thank you for being vulnerable and really sharing, some of those challenges you had. I can't imagine what it must have been like when you were a child, because kids can be so mean. And I have 3 daughters, and I don't mean to be stereotypical, but girls can be some of the worst. So that had to be hard, especially with everything you were challenged with.
Thanks, Bob. I think that's a fair point. But one thing that's so interesting, especially when I look back on that, is despite the stress and the obstacles, I was high functioning. So on the outside, I looked like I was thriving.
You look like you had your stuff together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was excelling in school. I had a wonderful group of friends, all the extracurricular activities. Yet inside, I was always bracing for something terrible to happen, tied to the nervous system dysregulation and really not knowing what to do with the stress. So I'm so glad you mentioned that because...
Well, it helps frame it for us.
Yeah.
So, on the exterior, you seemed normal. I mean, you did. I mean, you were high functioning and you were, whether you were class president or playing sports, and you had your friends. Mm-hmm. But like you shared with us, you were crumbling from the inside out.
Truly. Good way to put it. And, go ahead.
No, I love that. So I want to go back to about the foods.
Sure.
Or so you talked about primary and secondary foods. What does that mean?
Yes, this is a concept that I love. And so when I am coaching with someone on food, I like to break it down into two different categories of food. There's primary food and secondary food. And primary food is the food that feeds you on a soul level. It's all of the enriching aspects of life that nourish you beyond what's on the plate. So it's things like your home environment, your career, your finances, relationships, spirituality, education, career, creativity, joy.
So you're using food as more of a metaphor.
In this sense.
Consuming, right?
Yes.
So it's not, putting on your plate a piece of protein and a starch. You're talking about the stuff that you're digesting in life.
I love that language.
Yes.
Specific to primary food, yes. And secondary food is what you just described. It's what we put in our mouth. It's any of the food that we actually eat to fuel our body, to boost our immune system, to really give us the energy to go live a rich, fulfilling life focused on primary food. And what's so interesting about it is, especially for those who are struggling with food, weight gain, even disordered eating disorders, oftentimes if there's an imbalance in our relationship with primary food, the enriching aspects of life, we can see that have a direct impact on our relationship with secondary food, the food that we put in our mouth.
There's definitely a correlation to that, for sure. No,
Yeah.
I like how you put that together. And you and I talked before the show. We're recording the show now on December 12th, 2025. And, we're coming up on a new year, and it's hard to believe it's going to be 2026. It's like, that just blows my mind. But everyone has resolutions. And I won't say everybody, but there's the mindset that people are like, I'm going to do this in the new year. I'm going to change. I'm going to change the primary food, like you talked about, or the secondary food on what I'm consuming. Mm-hmm. Before we jump off the food chain, and, it certainly goes hand in hand with being a health coach, what would you share with us and certainly our viewers and our listeners on what they should be thinking about, especially as we end this year? This show will probably air before the end of the year, if not right at the very beginning of January, to be thinking about in the new year. How should they approach this? And this is coming from Edie Feffer, the health coach.
Thanks, Bob. How should they approach their health goals?
Any goals, the concept of a resolution.
Gotcha.
So it could be, and why I use the primary food, it could be a career, right?
Yes.
It could be, trying to maybe form a closer relationship with a sibling or a parent or a child, whatever those aspirations are for somebody in the new year. Maybe it's
Yes.
travel.
Yes.
What recommendations would you make to them
Yeah.
as they're listening to our show here today?
Such a good question. I love to think about goal setting, whether it's specific to primary food, secondary food, reversing your osteoporosis, whatever it may be, relative to your identity and who you're becoming. And that is the foundation for a lot of the work that I do specific to goal setting. So we're thinking about who I want to be in 2026, how I want to treat myself. And a lot of clients initially will come into a program thinking about accountability and habit formation. And of course, those are two aspects of health coaching for sure. But I always like to start with mindset and examining your own mind and just noticing the thoughts that you're thinking and what you're feeling. So to answer your question around what can I do in 2026 when I'm working towards these big health goals, whether it's to go to Europe for the first time or something specific to the relationship pillar of your primary food, I would first want to just get curious to notice what it is that you're thinking and what it is that you're feeling towards that specific goal. And then from there, we could start to take action, or you could start to think through a very doable plan. So starting smaller than you think you should. I always encourage clients to lower the bar and start smaller than your brain is suggesting that you should. So baby steps towards whatever the goal may be.
And how would you recommend they stay with it? You and I know that resolutions don't typically make it to March, And maybe it's not a resolution. It's like you said, it's a mindset, right? It's being able to have a goal and take that forward. Now, you may say this, and I would probably agree with you on this. We oftentimes need to be accountable to somebody. And a health coach is somebody that could help you be accountable to it. But not everybody can have a health coach. So if you can't have a health coach, I'm asking, how would you help yourself be accountable to keeping those primary and secondary food goals?
Yes, I love that question. And it's one I totally get, because when I think back to my own health journey, I felt like I was stuck in this vicious cycle of starting and stopping for decades.
Right.
So the struggle is real, and the key is to do the first phase of what I describe in health coaching, and this is something that you can start to do now on your own without my support. And in phase 1, I encourage you to become what I call a gentle, non-judgmental observer of yourself, where I'm wanting you to really do what I just described. Get curious. And you can start to get curious as you're observing yourself. When I do this work in my own life, I always put my hands above my head, and it's like I imagine I'm in a movie and I'm just watching myself move throughout my day.
Well, I love it.
And the 3 questions that I would invite you to ask yourself are, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? And do I like my choices? It's really easy for me to not judge anything that you're doing or not doing as a health coach. And I would invite you to start to extend that same compassion towards yourself so that we can find the answers to those 3 questions. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And do I like my choices? And then from there, you can start to shift into phase 2 of health coaching, which is implementation and experimentation, where you're just using the data that you've found to start to formulate a plan. And in terms of how do I stay accountable to myself, there are a couple thoughts there. One is around making sure that your plan is doable. So you're starting smaller than your brain is telling you you should, like I mentioned earlier. And when we're thinking about identity work being the basis for change, there's an exercise that I often share with clients called finding your why.
Ooh,
And
I like that.
I would encourage your listeners to do that. And it's so very simple. I'm happy to share it if you'd like.
There's no better forum than right here on Health Futures. Please, tell us how to find the proverbial why.
Yes. So as an example, if you're coming in, if you have a goal of weight loss, the idea is that we want to find a deeper, more meaningful why. Releasing the weight will no doubt be exciting and meaningful. But we want to look at what that weight loss will do for you, how it changes your day-to-day life, why it matters to you. And so with whatever your goal is, whether it's primary food or secondary food related, any aspect of your health and well-being, you'd put the goal at the top of your page and then ask yourself why you're wanting to achieve that goal 3 times. So ask yourself why, fill it out, ask yourself why that matters, respond again, and do it a 3rd time. And you'll arrive at an answer that really shows you, as an example, it's important to me to start strength training or lifting weights 3 times a week because I want to be able to get up off the floor with my grandkids, or because I want to be able to take the trip with my family, or I want to maintain my independence as I age. So that is the thing that we'll lean on the days that we don't feel like doing what I call a high vibe habit.
I love it. I love it. We're getting ready to take a break, but I want to come back when we take this break. And I want to talk about the secondary food and what is Edie Feffer's opinion on these GLP-1s and helping them achieve this goal, because it is out there and it is mainstream today like nobody's business. So you're listening and watching Health Futures. We're going to take a break right now. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back at Health Futures. I got Edie Feffer here in the studio with me. She's an EFT practitioner and a health coach. And we left off in that last segment talking about primary and secondary foods. You did such a great job of talking about that and goal setting and really understanding what your why is. So secondary foods are the foods that we eat and we consume through our mouth. And I left you with that question about GLP-1s and your thoughts on them, and how you're coaching some of your clients to achieve these goals that we've been talking about.
Sure. Yes. I mean, as a health coach, I can't prescribe medication.
100%.
And I won't... I don't think it would be fair for me to comment on whether or not that's the right next step for someone in their own health and wellness journey. I will say that I think health coaching can be so valuable whether you're on one or not, because when I think about my own struggles with food, weight, and body, or when I think about the challenges that many clients come into my programs with around overeating, sneak eating, using food to cope, getting to the root of what's causing those behaviors is what allows for peaceful, sustainable, lifelong change.
100%.
And that work can feel daunting if you've been doing it on your own for decades like I had. And so very freeing. It's what will keep you going. And aside from the emotional side of food, I think if you're on a GLP-1, there are a lot of practices or habits that we can establish to make sure that you are supporting your aging and longevity. So making sure that you're hitting your protein targets, that you are strength training. I think when
That's a good point. Strength training is big with people on GLP-1s.
Yes.
Because you lose not only fat, but you lose muscle.
You can. And I think for a lot of people who are working towards a weight loss goal, it's so easy to become so focused on losing the weight that we'll do it at any cost, including at the expense of our long-term health. And I have been guilty of that in my own past attempts prior to finding food freedom. So it's not a judgment at all, but it is something to be cautious of yes, I'm wanting to lose weight perhaps for the sake of my long-term health. And so how can we do it in a way that actually is optimizing your health?
Right. No, I love it. And, you know, the other thing about GLP-1s that they're discovering too is how it curbs a lot of addictions other than food. You know, smoking, gambling, sexual, you name it. It's got definitely an effect beyond that secondary food category.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're learning so much.
Yes.
We really are. So I want to do a deeper dive into the stress and emotional health that comes with someone that has chronic illness. And, you know, look, we're in the aging space and we come across people that are dealing with lots of chronic health issues that affect their nervous system, affect their mobility, affect, you know, whatever the disease or fragility of life that they're going through. So I think, you know, for me, it's like, you know, how do you help somebody that is going through that type of journey? Mm-hmm. And I know you have experience in working with our older adult population, which is, you know, primary audience, or at least the primary topics of health futures. And what we talk about is how an older adult can live a healthier, happier life. They listen right here.
Yes. I love that question because I think a lot of us don't realize how our emotional well-being contributes to our physical health. And our emotions aren't just mental. They are physiological events. So when we think about stress or difficult emotions, if we aren't able to process them, if we aren't able to name the emotion, to move it through the body, it can get stored as stress or trauma. And that can keep our fight or flight response activated. And when we think about the fact that most adults can only name 3 emotions, mad, sad, and glad, and that comes from the research of Brené Brown, it's not surprising that many of us don't know what to do if we are going through a difficult life event.
Right.
And the toll that takes on our body can play out in the form of even osteoporosis. We know that elevated levels of cortisol can contribute to bone breakdown, decreased bone formation. It can increase inflammation. It can impact our gut health. We know that it disrupts our sleep when we're stressed, our hormones. And so one of the things that I think can be helpful as we're thinking about aging and longevity is increasing our emotional fluency. And there are 2 tools that your listeners could check out that are free resources online that will just help you be able to name an emotion more specifically or more precisely. 2 tools that I really like to use are the Hoffman Feelings List. It has this list of over 100 emotions. And then the Emotional Guidance Scale, which comes from the work of Abraham Hicks. Mm-hmm. And the more precisely you can name an emotion, it's a huge win because specificity leads to clarity. So that will change the way the brain responds to a specific emotion. Like the thought, I feel lonely, versus I feel overwhelmed, versus I feel anxious or disappointed. Those all have very different needs. And when you have the tools to be able to name what you're feeling, there are different actions that you can take to move the emotion through the body. And when we're thinking about it from any demographic, but especially with the clients that I work with in their 50s and beyond, it's such an important step to a healing journey, a health journey, so that any regret, from the past, any disappointment from the past, any shame, blame, whatever it may be, we can work through it and heal it so that those memories from the past or pain from the past isn't robbing you of the joy that exists in the present. So I'll pause there just to get your feedback.
100%. And it's got to be hard because, people go through therapy and they have to unpack all that. And, I don't mean to be so, how should I say, so simplistic in the way I look at things, because, the metaphor I'll typically use is we really shouldn't be looking through the rearview mirror. We should be looking through the windshield. Because if we look backwards, we're only going to, judge ourselves. We're going to be judgmental, and there's been some disappointments. But we've got to figure out how we can look through the windshield and really look at not just today, but tomorrow.
Yes.
And how can we make tomorrow better? No, I love that. And, for me, you mentioned sleep. And, gosh, my mother-in-law sells mattresses, and, she talks, the reason why she's number one salesperson in her district, and she's, by the way, 87 and a half years old, and works at the Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania location. And if you do Yelp reviews, you see my mother-in-law's name, is cool. That she talks about that, 1/3 of your life is spent sleeping, and how important it is to have a really good mattress. Is that something you see a lot with the clients that you work with, that, they are struggling with sleeping, they're not getting enough, they don't have good sleep habits, they're maybe consuming caffeine or alcohol, too late in the day? Can you talk to us a little bit about that, sleep and really health, and how that is interrelated?
Yes. Sleep is such an interesting one. And I think it is a two-pronged approach, because many clients do have issues with sleep, whether it's tied to stress. We hit the pillow and then we have these racing thoughts. That's an indication that our nervous system is looking for an exhale. And so in my mind, it actually isn't a sleep issue with that particular example. It's an emotional issue, and it could be needing to address the stressor itself or put different habits in place so that we're managing the overwhelm earlier in the day, sending a safety signal to the body earlier on in the day, so that by the time you do have a minute to slow down, the body feels safe to actually do so. So it's this two-pronged approach of looking at the emotion, looking at the thoughts, and then, to your point, also thinking about sleep hygiene. Are there habits that I want to put in place? Are there little micro adjustments or small levers that we can pull to help you get good quality, deep, restful sleep, like blackout curtains, earplugs, eye masks, the right temperature setting, eating at least 3 hours before we go to bed so that your body can shift into more of a parasympathetic state of rest and digest. And then in terms of how that impacts our health and well-being, I think it's fascinating. Whether we're thinking about it from a weight loss perspective or osteoporosis. I coach in a clinic that specializes in reversing osteoporosis with Dr. Doug Lucas, and sleep is one of our foundational pillars. It's our repair, our remodeling, and so taking lifestyle steps that we can to help you get good quality sleep is so very important.
100%. No, I appreciate you talking about sleep. So we're about to take another break, but when we come back, I've described you as an EFT practitioner. I'm not certain what that really is, and that is a big part of what you do. And I know it's up there on your website. And real quickly, can you give our listeners your website if they want to find out and learn more about Edie Feffer?
Yes, you can find more information about me at ediefeffer.com. It's EDIEF like in Frank, EFF like in Frank, ER.
Perfect. So when we come back, I want to talk about EFT and what a practitioner does. But I also want to come full circle and really talk about your health coaching and EFT practitioner and how it really applies in the older adult world and in the caregiving space that I'm in.
Sure.
And the people I think about all the time, and we just celebrated it last month in November, is family caregivers and the
Yes.
stressors that they go through.
Yes.
So when we come to the conclusion of our show, I want to talk about how we can apply some of the stuff that you practice for our family caregivers.
Yes, I love that.
You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. We're going to take a break right now. We'll be right back. We're back. I got Edie Feffer here, and she is a health coach and an EFT practitioner. Not quite sure what an EFT practitioner is, but we're going to learn here together. So, Edie, would you please, if you would, I'm going to give you the microphone. Tell us what an EFT practitioner is and what do you do as an EFT practitioner?
Yes, and I like that you weren't super familiar with it or familiar with it at all, Bob. I'm happy to answer any questions. And EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And it is a stress reduction tool. EFT, or Emotional Freedom Techniques, is also referred to as tapping. So when we're doing EFT, we are tapping on specific meridian points on the body while we speak intentional phrases out loud to address a circumstance or an emotion or an issue that's bothering you. And it looks really weird. I get it. Right.
I think I seen Matt McConaughey or someone doing that, right?
Okay.
I've seen it on or maybe he was doing it in Wolf of Wall Street, doing something a little bit different with the chest.
Yes. Yeah. And it is for sure gaining popularity. I'm thinking of...
I need to be corrected. Leonardo DiCaprio was doing it.
Yes. Okay. I was picturing the movie scene too.
Yeah.
But EFT, it combines elements of acupressure, where we're tapping on these specific meridian points on the body, with elements of cognitive behavioral therapy and exposure therapy. And what I love about it is that it is a way to help you get up, get going, and re-engage with life in a way that feels meaningful and exciting without being stuck in a spin cycle of reliving the trauma or, to your point, living in the past. We can be aware of an issue that keeps presenting. And with EFT, we're rewiring the way the brain and body act and react to that circumstance or to that event.
How does one become an EFT practitioner? Is there a certification that you go through?
Good question.
Yeah.
So I trained privately with my EFT practitioner for 3 years. She was one of the world's 8 original progressive EFT masters, and I'm currently in my clinical EFT certification with EFT Universe.
I love it.
Thanks.
Tell me, actually, what is happening when you're doing the tapping? What physically in the body and in the brain? What is that promoting? Is it cortisol? What is it doing?
I like to think of it like an off switch for cortisol.
Okay.
And I'll speak to what's happening in the brain and body. And I always like to start with the science because it looks weird. And a lot of people wonder, how is tapping on my collarbones, as an example, going to do anything for me? And then you feel the shift. You experience the relief. You have your own cognitive reframes, and stuff that used to keep you up at night or cause worry no longer does. So to answer your question around what's happening in the brain and the body when we tap on these specific meridian points, that sends a calming signal to the amygdala. And the amygdala is a part of your brain that I think of like a smoke detector. So its job is to always be scanning for danger, and it does that to keep you safe. Anytime it picks up on a difficult emotion that you're experiencing, like worry, doubt, fear, it will sound the alarm. And the hippocampus is the part of your brain that I think of like a historian. It's like this big filing cabinet, and it has tagged specific memories, especially memories where you felt fear, so that if a similar event presents itself, the amygdala can sound the smoke alarm. And the example that I always like to give is, let's say you were stung by a bee as a kid, and it was traumatic. You got an infection. You had to go to the hospital. Now, as an adult, anytime you hear buzzing, you have that same bodily response. Even if you, in reality, are safe, we're not near flowers or we're not near bees, the body remembers. And so EFT is a way where we can tap on those specific memories, those specific sensory aspects. And what it's doing is it's decoupling the emotional charge attached to that memory, and it's telling the brain that we no longer need to file it as danger. So now when you hear buzzing or when you're in a flower bed, you feel peace. That's why it's called emotional freedom.
Wow. Technique.
Yes, emotional freedom technique.
Yeah.
We're creating emotional freedom.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. So for someone listening right now who is looking to feel better, both physically and emotionally, and feeling kind of overwhelmed and stuck, where's a really good place to start?
Such a good question. I think EFT is a fabulous place to start. When I think about the clients that I work with who are caregivers, going back to your earlier question.
Yeah, we're coming full circle.
Yeah.
Please.
EFT is a beautiful tool because it allows you to work through the emotional fatigue, the caregiver fatigue, everything that you're carrying so that you can show up as your best self for your loved one. Something I'm really excited about is the way we're using EFT to change the way we do emotional care in healthcare. If you think about a caregiver or a doctor, you witness difficult stuff all day long and then just keep going. And that gets stored in the body.
100%. I think of like an oncologist, how hard that must be.
Yes.
Because they see death so much.
Yes.
It's got to be really hard.
Yes. One of my long-term clients is an ER doctor, and it is a very powerful tool to be able to acknowledge what you went through in the day so that you have a peaceful transition home. I think about the work that I'm doing with Blood Cancer United, formerly the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I'm excited for an event that I'm doing with them for their caregivers and survivors to address the emotional load with cancer.
So as we get ready to wind down the show, I'm thinking about caregivers, specifically family caregivers. What would you suggest to them? I mean, the biggest challenge we do have is so many of them are going at it alone.
Yes.
And so many of them from this generation that is now fading, took the oath of sickness and health really literally. So they do it on their own. And, for me, a lot of the techniques that we've talked about, whether it be from your health coaching expertise or EFT practitioner standpoint, what recommendations would you give to them, this person that's caring for a loved one and maybe not getting the resources and help?
Yes, I'm sure you're not surprised, Bob, that I would say to acknowledge the thoughts and the feelings. Don't sweep them under the rug. And there are several different portals or outlets that you could experiment with until you find one that works best for your brain and your body. So as you're caring for a loved one, can you carve out 10 minutes in the morning to do a brain dump in a journal? And if you're new to journaling, a lot of the clients that I work with who didn't grow up with counseling being normal aren't used to talking about their feelings or thoughts or emotions. They're very private. So the journal could be this safe space for you to just let your thoughts unspool, to find clarity, to acknowledge what you're feeling, to just let it out on the page. Don't filter it, judge it, censor it. And if you are new to journaling, I'll share a resource that I absolutely love, and it is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. She has a practice called Morning Pages that could be a great starting point. Tapping is awesome. There are online resources that you can do to get started with that specific topic.
Right.
Brad Yates is a practitioner on YouTube that you could look at. I have resources on my website as well that are free.
And just so everyone knows, these resources will be in our notes from the podcast.
Awesome.
So, please don't feel like you have to write them all down.
Great. And then for anyone dealing with the overwhelm or burnout from caregiving, movement. And I think that's an often overlooked one. But for anyone dealing with, some of the mental health struggles that I've shared from my past, anxiety and depression, walking, just getting out and
Getting some fresh
air, letting your eyes scan the horizon, taking, even if it's just a 5-minute break for yourself, can help you send a safety signal to your nervous system, taking a beat.
All of these are great recommendations. And, certainly I'm a big supporter of support groups. You're not doing this journey all by yourself.
Yes.
There are others that are going through the same journey, and really talking to other people kind of is a safety place where you can share emotions that you're going through that you might not be able to share with family members or friends.
Absolutely.
Because people can relate to you. And it's empowering to get that off your chest.
Yes.
And sharing your emotions rather than bottling them up and having all the challenges that you were talking about at the beginning of the show. It's freedom, right?
It is, because you'll realize that you are unique in so many beautiful ways, but this particular struggle doesn't have to be one of them. So to your point, allowing support in, whether it's in the form of community, therapy, EFT, health coaching, whatever it may be, will be such a beautiful exhale for your nervous system.
100%. So Edie Feffer, we're getting ready to wind down our show here today. Is there a question I haven't asked or a thought that you want to share with our listeners? And when we say goodbye, I definitely would love for you to give your website again on how people can reach you.
Thanks, Bob. I think my hope for any listener, especially if it's a caregiver or anyone dealing with a difficult health situation, would be to not give up. Even if you're in a situation where everything you've tried hasn't worked. Whether it's with therapy, with health coaching, with doctors, remembering that it can take so many attempts to find the right fit and that you are worth it. Your peace, your health, your happiness is worth it. And the right fit for you is out there. When I think back to my own struggles, decades, I thank God, I thank myself that I tried one more time. And so I hope I serve as an expander of what's possible. And if you're low on hope or possibility, that's one of the benefits, to Bob's point, of allowing support in, because you're welcome to borrow my belief in you and what's possible until we get your brain on board with that as well.
The thing I really love about what you're doing is you've taken your weaknesses and you've made them your strength. That kryptonite is now your superpower, and you are using this superpower to help so many others that went through the same journey you did. And while you described, and I go back to the very beginning of the show, where you had this exterior that was very positive, it was attracting to friendships and doing lots of things, you were crumbling inside. And there's so many others that are out there doing the same. And, we need to address those issues, because those issues are going to take years off of our lives and take a lot of fun out of it.
Yes.
I mean, look, we're on this journey, and this isn't a dress rehearsal. This is it. When we're done, we're done. So we want to make the most of it, right? And, many of us believe in an afterlife and heaven and everything that comes along with it. But while we're here, we want to make it the best we can. And some of the stuff that you're practicing is going to help so many people. And I'm really pleased, and it's my pleasure to have you here on Health Futures and to be able to share some of these learnings and some of the stuff that you're practicing here today. So once again, how do people get a hold of you?
Thank you. Yes, you can connect with me through my website, ediefeffer.com, and you can email me at edie@ediefeffer.com.
And that's Feffer with FEFFER.com.
Yes.
Well, thank you for being in Health Futures, and thank you, our listeners, for joining us. We'll be back next week. Thank you, Edie Feffer. Make it a great day. Have a great holiday.
Thank you. You too. Thank you so much for having me.
And we'll probably see you next year.
Sounds good.
Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm Bob Roth, reminding you that living well isn't just about years, it's about the quality of life and connections. Follow and share the show, and join us next time for more on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life.